apparently, I mean, I've learned a lot about the legal
I'm
system,
sure.
and I still know nothing. But apparently, this next stage, to make this appeal to the federal court, it can only be done on legal arguments. Whereas before, we were able to get letters of support and
Right.
witness statements and all sorts of other stuff to back us up. Whereas this, Lee has to argue that there were mistakes of law made in that decision.
Right.
So, yes, that's what it boils down to. And because the law is as it is in Australia, and because the Australian Human Rights Commission are as captured as they are, again, it's anybody's guess. That's why he's wanting to go to the full court with 3 judges instead of just the one. With 3 judges, maybe there's more of a chance that the case will actually be heard. So there are a number of points that he's going to be challenging in terms of the law.
So he feels like there's a case. He feels like there's things he can bring.
One was absolutely ridiculous thing that within the Sex Discrimination Act, there is the provision for these temporary exemptions. I mean, it's there in the Act. But some of his arguments against giving us an exemption were things like, well, we know that there's going to be a big pushback and a challenge, and that these are not exact words, but, my interpretation, and that things could get nasty. So there's no point in giving you an exemption because
you won't be able to handle it.
Control that.
Yeah.
So basically what he's saying is the bullies are saying they're going to come and get you. So it's a, we won't let you have one.
Everything's backwards, right? Everything's backwards.
Yeah.
There's going to people come after you, so you shouldn't be able to do it.
That's right. And another one was, if we give you an exemption, then that's going to discriminate and disadvantage these trans men, these men who want to be lesbians.
The health of them, I think it said, right? It's going to make their health suffer.
That's right. They'll go out and kill themselves, But I mean, that's what the exemptions are there for, is to allow us to discriminate.
Right.
And yet he says he cannot allow us to discriminate against this group.
I think your lawyer has some things to work with there. I think that's great. Yeah, that's great.
I mean, we know we're right. We know that the logic is on our side.
Sure.
And common sense is on our side, absolutely. But somehow, in these people's minds, things get really skewed. It's ridiculous.
Right. And with all the terrible things going on in the world now, and always is something terrible going on in the world, that people could be talking about, dictators or Nazis or, people that are actually, have power and do terrible things and affect people's human rights. They're using these words on a group of lesbians who want to have a party. It's like, why don't they focus on real problems and fight the good fight to stop violence and dictators and oligarchs and
Well, I mean, obviously it's because the agenda is bigger than lesbians having a party.
That's right.
And to allow lesbians to have a party without men who say they are lesbians opens a whole can of worms for them. And their agenda is bigger than that. So
it denies everything they believe they are, therefore it's going to ruin their whole house of cards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
I mean, it really, if we won this, it would really challenge the Sex Discrimination Act itself.
That's right.
So it's that big. So if they want to keep, if the Australian Human Rights Commission want to keep it as it is, with an interpretation of sex as being changeable and not binary, then they need to fight this all the way. Because it does. If we win this, it really challenges the whole act itself, and it would need to come down, crashing down, basically. So they're not going to let us win it. So
I'm excited for you, and I'm excited for all of us to see this through and see this happen. And do you know the timeline, Carol, for this?
No, what happens is, first off, we have to have a meeting where timelines and boundaries are set, and then they make a date for a tribunal, for a federal court hearing.
Right.
But yes, we won't know yet, and it's likely to take all year for one. The tribunal, the federal court case. And then they take ages, up to 6 months, to make their decision. And given that it's quite a big decision, it will probably take that. And we're running alongside the Tickle versus Giggle case as well. And there is talk of trying to either intervene in the Tickle versus Giggle case or have ours heard at the same time. So that the two cases can be side by side and support each other, basically.
Right. Great.
But again, that's legal stuff that I don't know anything about. I'll just leave it to the lawyers to all around that one.
So at the federal court, it will be lawyers presenting, debating, and the judges deciding. There'll be no witnesses necessarily. Okay. Well, I'm sure that there's people here at the webinar that have some questions. So I'm going to ask that if people would write their questions, if you go down to the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A that you can click on. And I think Chris, our techie person, can open that up for questions. So I'm just going to keep an eye on that. And if people have any questions, please type them in the Q&A for Carol. And because I know that there's women here from the US and the UK, Norway, Canada, across the country, and Australians that have joined us too. But in Canada, there are a couple of groups of lesbians, and we're trying to create a broader network across the country. But that are dealing with this, building towards this. We're learning from your experience. You're in a different country, but there's some similarities, just as there have been in other countries before us, like the UK. We're still waiting on some decisions in Scotland over some cases lately, as some of you probably know.
Yeah. And no, lesbians are rising. Lesbians are rising, I think. Yes. Just saying, no, this is ridiculous. Stop it.
Yeah.
So win or lose the actual cases, I think doing it is a win, because the publicity is getting the word out. It's making other lesbians feel braver about standing up and saying, no, this is rubbish. We're not going to stand for it. So that's the only way you can see it in terms of keeping up the fight, is that we are winning anyway. Whatever they decide, we are winning.
Yes, we'll have certain victories as we go, because we have to organize to do this work anyway, and we are doing that. Yes,
and we have to rebuild our communities. They have been decimated.
Yes.
Over the last couple of decades.
Yes.
And if we're going to have lesbian community to hand on to our young lesbians, we've got to rebuild it, unfortunately.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. There's the first question has come into our Q&A, and I know our countries are different, but Stephanie is saying, what do you suggest we do in Vancouver to achieve women-only spaces for lesbians? So I don't know if that's something you feel you can comment on, Carol?
Well, I don't know your laws, so I don't know. But if you are able to make a private club like ours, go for that, or do underground stuff and reach out as much as possible underground. But you've got to be organised, and you've got to. It's a lot of work to rebuild this stuff. You've got to know the laws. You've got to be careful at first until you reach a critical mass.
Yeah, it's like building numbers and building support, right? Yeah. Kathleen has a question here. What threat do you see from going to the courts, who can squash laws as much as they can uphold them? What extra legal organizing are you doing to put pressure on the courts? Is the lesbian club part of this pressure? So it's kind of three questions. So what threat do you see from going to the court? Can you be further behind rather than further ahead because of this?
Well, some people say we shouldn't be going to the courts because we keep losing, and that sets precedents, which it does. But if we don't go, we don't get anywhere anyway.
That's right.
Yes, it's setting precedents, but it's also making more people aware of the ridiculousness of it and the unfairness of it. When you say to people, lesbians can't meet without letting men who say they're lesbians into their spaces, their jaw drops. For some reason, men in women's spaces is, or men saying they're women is, sort of they can get their head around it. But when you say men saying they're lesbians, lots of people, most people can't even grasp that. So I think, and LAG thinks it's worth doing it.
It builds support. You think it's builds support for you? Yeah.
Yeah, and it raises awareness. The more noise we make, the more people hear about it and think that's ridiculous.
Right.
Were there any other parts of that question?
Yes, there were. The next thing Kathleen wanted to know is what, I guess, if any, extra legal organizing are you doing to put pressure on the courts? I'm not sure what that quite means, but
no, I don't know what it means. I mean, it would be good to be able to be a big enough group that we could lobby politicians, and that's a whole area of organisation.
Well, that's
that
true.
We just don't have the resources to do. But that's in the courts and in the government is where the changes need to be made, and we do need to lobby politicians.
And maybe that's what she's referring to is other organizing to get support from people like that. Do you have any political support from politicians?
There are a few, but it's only a handful. Both major parties are, just pro-trans or anti-women. So we do have a federal election coming up this year. So it would be really good. And I'm sure there are women's groups. We've got a number of women's groups who will be putting pressure on politicians around this, but not around lesbians in particular. So it would be really good if we had the resources to be able to do that.
Right.
But you can only do what you can only do.
Yeah. And is the lesbian club part of working on this, part of building the social pressure and the political pressure, or is that a separate
It's a separate thing. It's a separate thing. That's more aimed towards rebuilding lesbian community.
Okay.
And we want to keep that as safe and as possible.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's our social arm. LAG is the
political arm. Okay. Sheena has a question. She's saying in Canada, she thinks that the majority of people would support our position. However, there's no coverage of the issue by news sources, so most are unaware of the harms being done. How does your media cover the issue, if at all?
Media is really, really captured. It's
Right.
it's hopeless. We've had a few wins with a couple of articles over the 2 years in mainstream media and on TV.
Right.
But mostly they ignore us, or they report us as anti-trans.
Right.
An anti-trans lesbian group did blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But, you just have to keep plugging on. I mean, if you don't keep sending them stuff, they're not going to know either. So you need to just keep plugging on, get your contact list there and just keep sending them stuff. And some of it might get through, and also use the independent media sources and social media. I mean, we have a plethora of ways of getting the message out.
Right.
Yeah.
Barbary from Lag here. So this is another Australian woman.
Hi, Barbary.
She was sitting in the room in 2013 when the Human Rights Commission explained why man and woman had been removed from the Sex Discrimination Act. And she's saying, we're not only fighting the organizations like the Human Rights Commission, we're fighting big pharma, big medicine, transhumanism, all the things, all the global things. And then she suggests reading Jennifer Billick. So yeah, not really a question, but a comment. Thanks, Barbary. Is it Barbary? Is that how we say her name?
Barbary, yes.
Barbary, yeah, thanks. Wendy. Oh, it didn't seem that she finished. Kathleen, again, what organizing to get public opinion to be visible to the court, so the court doesn't feel like they need to make such ridiculous decisions. So affecting public opinion so that the courts see that there's such a groundswell of, or a growing constituency of people that are on side, which most of us seem to believe that we don't, if we just walked up and down the street and asked random people a question, that they would also think it was ridiculous what the Human Rights Commission was saying. So what do we do to build public opinion? Are you working on that in any way? I guess your whole case has been that to some degree.
The whole case is that, but we in the initial stage of it, where they asked for letters of support, we had around about 400 letters of support from all over the world. Men, women, lesbians, straight, whatever, legal arguments as well as personal stories. It was amazing. The other side, the trans activists, had 80 letters, and a lot of those were form letters. They put out send this to the Australian, and they just sent off a form letter.
I think they're always so lazy.
We had all sorts of other evidence, and they trotted out their usual surveys that prove that trans men will commit suicide in great numbers if we have a lesbian only event. And
have you had any trans suicides or murders in Australia in the last few years that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
That would be in the media, I guess, if there was. So not that we want it. I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm not diminishing that's suicide being a horrific thing.
There may well be trans people who've suicided, but the linking it to us having our own
I know.
event is very spurious.
It is.
So,
It's
but
shameful.
that's what that's it's like blackmail. That's what they're using as blackmail, and that's what the judges are picking up on. We can't allow you to do this
Yeah.
because trans people will suicide. I
Yes.
mean, they're seeing a direct link, and it's
Yes.
ridiculous.
Well,
But
it'd be
as I was
curious if they
saying,
do that when if a bunch of gay men decided they wanted a gay men's conference or meeting or event or dance or party, if they would say the same thing, because I think often it's, directed to women that we're the ones that are supposed to be, kind and supportive, and we don't want any harm to come from anyone, to come to anyone. And so I'm wondering if gay men do that, if they'll get the same story.
well, there was a gay pub here that applied for an exemption
Mm-hmm.
and got it,
Mm-hmm.
but they had to couch it in, the words of the Human Rights Commission.
Mm.
I don't know, something like anyone who's not gay presenting or some such thing. So I think that gay
Uh,
are still. Um,
when was that, Carol?
uh,
Exemption.
some years ago, I'm not still sure whether they still have that particular exemption. Yeah, I don't keep up with gay men stuff, so
Right.
I really don't know.
Right.
It was called the Peel Hotel, and actually a couple of hotels in Victoria had, gay events and had exemptions,
Right.
but that was a while ago. So probably not now, and they probably wouldn't be allowed to now that the AHRC has dug their heels in.
Right. Right.
Mm.
There's someone named Wendy who is talking about the AHRC. Maybe she's from Australia. The AHRC was determined by an international accreditation agency after 10 years to again meet the international standards and be given an A+ status again. So it's just a statement, I guess. I don't know if they got the standard or the status. And said that the UN Special Rapporteur on the Status of Women has been disallowed to be part of the LAG case in support of women's rights. Because I had heard that Reem El Salam had said something. Was it about your case?
It was. It was also there was one about the tickle and giggle one, but yes,
Right.
she wanted to, well, she made a statement
Yeah.
for our case, and it was disallowed.
On what basis, do you know?
I couldn't tell you
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Were there people outside of Australia that were allowed to be witnesses?
Well, Sheila Jeffries was our main witness, and she was in the UK at the time.
Okay.
So hers was done by video.
Okay.
We only had myself and Sheila as witnesses.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any other questions that people have? I think we've asked all or most of them. Someone's suggesting to talk to people everywhere. Well, that's true. Cafes, bus stops, yeah. Yeah, it's a hard thing to talk about because still, even people that are quite close to me will say, no, that's not really happening. Or that can't be that, whatever, ... whatever I happen to be saying. I mean, I'm lucky to have a lot of friends who haven't run away from me, a few. But there's still people who can't believe what's going on. And so they'll just say, that's impossible. And when the media is not covering something, and then you send them a link from some obscure or right-wing, perhaps, media, they are like, oh, yeah, that's not really happening because it's, whatever.
Yeah.
Crazy,
That's why what we're
crazy
doing
news.
is important because it's there in writing now. We've got a lot of stuff up on our website. So if women here haven't already checked out our website, it's lesbianactiongroup.org.au. And we've put a lot of the documents up there. So you can see and you can show people, this is what the various government bodies and judges have said.
Yeah.
These are their ridiculous words.
Yes.
For the tribunal hearing, we had tribunal tweets. So there's a record of what was said, and some of it is ridiculous.
Yes.
Mind you, there's some funny bits.
Yeah, you have to laugh sometimes.
You do have to laugh, otherwise you cry. But I was determined I wasn't going to say trans women or use their language. So I was saying men who say they are lesbian.
Yeah.
And I had to explain to the member, the judge, what that meant. That trans women or trans lesbians are actually men who say they are lesbians.
Right.
And I kept using that word and that way of saying it. And by the second day, even the AHRC barrister was saying men who say they are lesbians.
Isn't that wonderful?
It was wonderful. It was just a minor victory, but you take them when you find them.
But you weren't being told, you weren't allowed to speak those hateful words.
No, my lawyer, Lee, had said, just be yourself, be honest, say what you want to say, be polite and professional, but just say what you want to say. That's why I had fun, because I said what I wanted to say, and it's there in court documents now. Yeah.
Here's a question from Natalie, and I'm going to talk about both Kathleen and Natalie, who have asked questions, are members of a Vancouver group called the Vancouver Lesbian Collective, and I'm going to mention their event that's coming up too before we get to the end today, because there is some organizing going on in different lesbian circles. So Natalie's asking how often you get together with the lesbians who are part of the lesbian club, because that's the social part, right? And how do you celebrate lesbian pride?
Well, you can check out our lesbian club website. You won't be able to see behind the scenes,
right?
But you can see what some of the things we do. We have a big calendar of events up there, and we don't organise all of them. We publicise ones that are going on that we think our members would enjoy, and they range from all sorts. We just had a whole week in a lovely beachside town.
Nice.
Camping and cabins and stuff, and all sorts of events of, from lesbian dog show to Thai dinner, bushwalks.
Nice.
Yeah, so there's that sort of thing.
Well,
and
fun.
there were around 90 lesbians there.
Wow.
In this little town.
Isn't that great?
And down to just last Saturday, there was an exhibition at our National Victorian Art Gallery, and a small group of a woman artist, a small group went to that. We just publicised that on the TLC email list, and women who want to go to that. What else we've got? We've got coming up again a card tournament for those 500 players who are very competitive, and the rest of us just play other games. But the competitive mob, they get there and compete for the prize.
So you have a lot going on, and people, depending on their interests, they'll find something that they like, and it's big.
Well, that's right. And we encourage members to put stuff up there. So if someone's going to a movie, they say, anyone interested in going to a movie? and you know that anyone who comes along is a TLC. So, you know.
Yeah.
And
are these all in Melbourne, or are there groups in different parts of Australia?
We've got members all over Australia, so in every state.
Okay.
The main group is Victoria, and
Okay.
the main bulk of events have been in Victoria because that's where we set ourselves up. But
Right.
the other states are growing. So this year, again, one of our aims is to grow those other groups in the states. So
right.
and I are going off to Queensland soon, and we'll get TLC members up there organised and meeting, and we're going to Sydney, do the same there.
Nice.
We've got a few in WA, and they're very isolated over in Western Australia. But we had a Zoom discussion group the other night too, so that allows members from all over Australia to join in on a discussion and get to meet each other.
Oh, nice.
So there's all sorts of ways and means you can get women together.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be really onerous. It can just be what you're doing anyway, and it can be small. Or you can, like last year, the conference, that was a lot of organising, but women came from all states to that.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, both Kathleen and Natalie are helping us here in the chat by saying Kathleen has pointed out, because she had some difficulty finding your website, so she's pointed it out for people. So if anybody wants to jot this down, because I don't know if you can see the Q&A, but if you can, it's in there. And if you can't, it's lesbianactiongroup.org.au. So that's all small letters, lesbianactiongroup.org.au. And then Natalie posted about the Lesbian Club, which is thelesbianclub.org.au. So people can go there. And we should keep in touch. We'd love to keep hearing more about where you're at with your events and your mainly your case. But I wanted to announce to the people here that are in BC that the Vancouver Lesbian Collective is hosting an event. It's not a lesbian event. It's an event about keeping women's space, lesbian space and women's space safe. The importance of women's separate space for IWD. So on March 8th, if you go to the website, which is Vancouver Lesbian Collective.com. Is that right? Someone will correct me in the chat, I'm sure, if that's not right. Vancouver Lesbian Collective.com. There's tickets left. Please buy tickets and support the Vancouver Lesbian Collective, who are taking on this big event. There's going to be some great speakers. Yeah, here we are. Vancouver Lesbian Collective.com. For any of you that don't have tickets yet, go and buy one, and it's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be some great speakers, local speakers, as well as Julie Bindle from the UK is going to be speaking. And you can book your tickets online, and then you'll get information about the location of the event. And they did one last March. It was super great event, and here's the second one. So Vancouver Lesbian Collective are doing some great stuff in our, I don't live in Vancouver, but just across the water from me. And various individuals as well are starting to get together to plan other things in collaboration with other groups. So we're getting there. We're joining you, Carol. It's got to be done, and it's fun. I mean, it's terrible we have to do it. There are other things I'd rather do, but I don't regret that I'm hanging out with a lot of really interesting women, many of whom I never met before. So.
Well, that's true. I've met so many, not just lesbians, but so many women and even men like Mr. Minnow, all over the world. It's fantastic. It is.
Yes. Kathleen has a question here, and maybe this is a good way for us to close. Is she wants to know, how can we support the ongoing case in Australia?
Well, we are asking for donations. We're about to set it. we've put up our bank details, but we're also about to set up a PayPal way of overseas
Okay.
people being able to donate. So there's that. That's on our website.
Okay.
But really, as I have been saying, our main objective is to just get the publicity out.
Yes.
Just keep talking about it, sharing stuff.
Yeah.
You can find us on X, the Lesbian Action Group, at Active Lesbians on X. So just keep
Yeah.
pushing it out there, and also doing your own thing, and rebuilding and keeping in contact with each other.
And
Yeah,
in a few years, we may have an international lesbian conference then.
absolutely. I might
Because
still be around by then.
what's that?
I might still be around by then if
I
we
might still be around by then too. So let's hope we can do it. And in the meantime, let's all keep in touch through the ways that we have been. So follow each other's on X and look at each other's websites to see. Women's Space Vancouver has a website. So for people to find out about our next webinars and how to donate to our ongoing education sessions. So if you enjoyed hearing from Carol today, we've got more to come in the next few months, and that'll all be on our website. It'll all be emailed out to people. If you want to get on our mailing list and you're not people that are here, please go to our website, Women's Space Vancouver. And if you just type that in, you'll find us, and you can ask to be put on our newsletter, and someone will probably give you a call to just make sure. We also are careful about who we let into meetings, although these webinars are open to the public because they're quite protected. But as far as some of our sessions, we keep to only friends and known women. But yeah, there's a lot going on, and we all need to keep in touch and keep supporting each other. So I really appreciate you taking this time, Carol Ann, to come and talk to us and to keep up the fight that you're doing. It is exhausting, and we shouldn't have to be doing this, should we? But there you are. You're doing it. So.
That's right. Well, I did my my early years of activism.
You did your decades before.
I did that for my daughter and granddaughter, and get to this age and think that all the stuff that I did has just been destroyed. So here I am again.
Yeah.
Just keep on fighting. And if anyone wants to get in touch, there is on our website, there is a contact details. And if you've got any more questions or just want to get in touch, just go to our website.
Right.
Both LAG and TLC.
Right. Yeah.
Don't you like TLC? Every lesbian needs TLC. The lesbian.
And that's the lesbian club. Yeah. That's great. No, that's great. And it was, the first time I think Carol Ann reached out first to us over here, and then when I wasn't quite sure how the lesbian club and the lesbian action group was connected. So when I sent you a note on the lesbian action group, I said, "Are you the Carol?" And so I can tell you people that if you do contact her, she will reply. You'll hear from her, and she's on top of it. So yeah, she needs our support. The lesbians in Australia need our support, and we will need your support down the road as well. So
absolutely. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks so much for doing this with us. We really appreciate it. And thanks everybody for attending. Hope to see you on International Women's Day at the Vancouver Lesbian Collective event and at our next series of events. And you'll all get notified about those. Some of them we've already told you about. Okay. Thanks, everybody.